Hello and welcome back to TWTV from another video verdict coming to you from an Ipswich Town game as we exit the Premier League. We're here actually before we head over to Goodison Park to speak to Phil and Kallum after the game. We've got a bit of a special segment now and I'm joined by Nick Durbin, or Mr. Drone.
Mr. Drone.
Welcome,
yeah.
Nick.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
Great to have you on. And obviously the reason we got this special segment, it's a bit of a momentous time for Everton fans and for you because you know, this is the last time Ipswich will ever play at Goodison Park, and it's the penultimate game ever for Everton. There's going to be a big fan display today. I think it's the fans' game.
Yes.
And Nick's been carrying out quite a project for a number of years. So, Nick, tell us a little bit yourself. You're your season ticket holder.
I am.
Tell us about yourself, but also tell us about the project you've been running.
Right. Okay. Yes. So, as you said, Jim, my name is Nick, but I am known largely around Everton fans as Mr. Drone UK. Because, as you can see in the background, this is our new stadium at Bramley-Moore Dock. Everton's new stadium we'll be moving to in August next season. I started filming this with my drone, hence the Mr. Drone UK. I started filming this when it wasn't there, but it was just water. Behind that wall, there was just water. So when Everton took the ground and started building, I started filming it just as a project initially for myself. And then people started watching, and it was at the height of it when they were actually lifted and everything. It was getting anything up to 100,000 views.
That's incredible.
A week,
yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's talk. I mean, look at it. I mean, just look at it behind us. It's absolutely stunning. We've been lucky, Nick, to go to quite a few stadiums through this season.
Okay.
You know, Spurs obviously stands out. We actually had some drone footage from there. Would you believe? Back when we went there, incredible stadium. But for me, this is really iconic. It's standing out quite a bit, and you know, it should stand out because I think what is it worth? It cost about £800 million, didn't it?
It's just under 800 million. Yeah. But do you know one of the best things about it is 800 million pounds, but that was budget. So one of the most interesting things and impressive things about the stadium is that it's built in budget and on time.
Yeah.
That's unheard of with football stadiums and stadiums in general. They're never finished on time. Look, you just mentioned the Tottenham Stadium. How overdue was that? Over budget was that? You know, just to name one. Fulham's isn't finished yet, really. You know, carry on.
That's been a huge delay on the Fulham one, which again was a nice standalone stand in its own right. But it's really impressive, and obviously you'll have just seen some of Nick's drone footage before we came on, so you get a real sense of it. And as you said earlier, it was reclaimed from the docks. So you've filmed this for a long time. Out of the build, what's been the really interesting stages of the build? What do you think was sort of interesting to see it coming together?
It's, you know, there's actually a few what I'd call momentous occasions. So one, when they were filling, so what they'd done, they filled the dock with sand. So when it was just water, you actually seen it, and we've seen it on video. And if you look back on my videos, people, you can see it. But you can see the water changing colour and going orange, and then you turn up one day and it's half sand, half water. You come the next week, it's all sand. That was really impressive. And then there was the fact that we started seeing steel coming out. One of the most impressive things was probably the lifting of the roof, because it's all built. Again, another interesting thing about the build, it was all built off-site, prefab concrete and everything, and even the steels. The roof they built on the pitch and then lifted it. So yeah, as you can tell, I could. I
love this enthusiasm.
It's great.
And actually, it's the barrel roof that really stands out. And I think there was a little bit of challenge in fitting that, wasn't it? That was the sort of the things that come up in the build. If you know what I mean, it took a bit longer than I expected, perhaps on that one.
It did. That was to do with weather.
Yeah.
Mainly to do with weather. Yeah. Because they're lifting, and it's hundreds and hundreds of panels that the barrel clad. I was lucky to be able to catch the last. I think I caught the first one and the last one. So that was what took a bit long. But even though the barrel clad took a bit longer, they were still able to carry on with other things around the stadium, which brought them in time. In fact, when I say in time, Lang O'Rourke, who built it, actually handed over one day early.
Right, which, as you said, I mean, I'm an engineer myself, and things don't tend to get delivered on time, and something at this scale. And also, there's something that's probably not in shot at the moment, you're seeing a bit earlier in Nick's thing, is the tower. So it's a sort of historic. Tell us a little bit about that. And for me, it's got a bit of a resemblance to the Everton badge as well. Tell us what that is.
There's actually, I know there's been actually Everton fans saying perhaps we should change the badge.
I think that's a great idea.
To match the tower. But the tower, the hydraulic tower, there used to be a very old pump house back in the God knows what year. But they're actually, the Everton plan, when they took over this site, the heritage was a big part of it. So you see not just the tower, but there's when you get inside, hopefully next season you come and visit us.
Yeah.
I know you
it won't be next week, maybe be a cup game, you never know.
Maybe not in the Premier
Maybe
League,
in 2
but
seasons
you can just
time.
come for a game.
Yeah, exactly, I'll just come up anyway.
But up behind the wall, and even including the wall, actually,
Yeah.
they had to restore all this heritage and keep the status. There's railway tracks and everything there.
Yeah.
So yeah, restoring all this is just
and what strikes me seeing it in person is the size of the sort of fan zone. It looks smaller from the road, but from your drone footage, that's going to be a really good place pre-match, isn't it?
Really
and then on the
good.
other side,
Yeah.
you've kind of got the steps that allow people to look out to the river.
You can
What's
look
the
out
background to
Mersey,
those?
Look out to the Mersey. It's like I say, it's just keeping in keeping with the docks. As you
Yeah.
can see, the brickwork that they've put up, that's not real brick either. I won't go into that, but still, all of this they've put up. When you look around the docks, there's a lot of dock buildings, the
Yeah.
tobacco warehouse, the building's just there, probably this one here right next to us. They've done that to keep in with all of the docks, even the steps, the wall, everything. So it's all everything about it is a well thought out process.
And you can kind of see that the regeneration of Liverpool is further down into the city centre, but you can see that around it there's a lot of opportunity for there's old warehouse buildings, and you can kind of feel this could be a bit of a catalyst for an improvement to
Well,
the
you
area.
see exactly where we're standing here, and you'll see it's an empty space. If you go to my video, so I started filming this July 2021. Scroll back to maybe it'll say Everton Stadium episode 1, something like that. I don't know. This is just overgrown.
Yeah.
It's completely overgrown, and it has been up until about 2-3 months ago. But now you'll see if you've walked around the corner, there's a lot going on. Just over the road, there's a big marquee being put up called the Holy Trinity.
Yeah.
There's a lot. There's a lot of generation.
It will be a catalyst for change.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, before we move on to the emotion of leaving Goodison Park, let's talk about the test events, because I know there's been 2, I believe.
Yes, there's been 2.
Have you been to one? What's it like inside the bowl?
I've been to both. I was lucky enough to get to both.
Yeah.
The first one with 10,000 fans was, the first one was really good because it was just getting inside, and the first, because I've been filming it so long, when I walked through that wall, it really took my breath away, in the fact that, like you've just said about that zone, it's huge. That zone just over the wall. In actual fact, they can put 17,000 people in there for small outdoor concerts or events. So that space is so vast, it takes your breath away. When I did go to the first test event, I had to just touch it because I've been filming it so long.
You must have sort of been watching this grow so much to finally get in there. Yeah, I can believe it. And what was it? Because it's one of the goals. West Ham was a disappointment for us as away fans, and I think, to be honest, West Ham, the former Olympic Stadium, it's been a bit disappointment for West Ham fans themselves. It's too far away from the pitch, too a shallow a tier. This looks like it's almost like you're going to fall down the stairs. Talk us through inside the bowl and the steepness.
The south stand, I think it's a 37 degree, I think, and I think it's the steepest in Europe, and that's although it's so steep.
Yeah.
I went in the first test event, I went in and walked to the top of there, and you do feel on top of the pitch still. So the first test event, I thought to myself, this is going to be really good. You know, you feel on top of the pitch. The next thing that I noticed is the height difference between the levels of seats. So, you know, the steps are quite steep, but then you must have 2 foot drop between each level of seats, which means, and they've got safe standing in the low as well.
Yeah.
But that means if I'm sitting behind someone who's really, really tall, I'm likely, very, very likely to still be able to see based on how they've built it.
It's it's got that modern, you know, the space as well.
Yeah.
Listen, honestly, Nick, I could keep just talking about this for hours, but we're gonna have to move.
I
know, I really could, but we can move on. I mean, one thing to say about, maybe to finish, is on that south stand element.
Yeah.
Arsenal, we've been to away. Again, a slightly disappointing stadium. They've worked hard on their atmosphere this season, you've probably seen. But they don't have that single bank. They've split. They don't have behind the goal single bank. And I think that's going to be a huge thing for Everton. Is that where the noise is going to come from? Are they allocating people to generate the noise? Just tell us a little bit about that single terrace for now.
Well, unfortunately, the south stand is split on ours. But there's just a small wall divide.
Yeah.
But I genuinely don't think, and I know you might think, I'll say this because I'm an Evertonian, I don't think we're going to have any issue at all generating atmosphere here. I seen it when we had the second test event. There were 25,000 people. The stadium was open more, so I was able to walk right round inside. That's one thing to pick up on. When you do go in, you can walk all the way around, which is really good for the stadium. But sitting there, just at a test event, it was a youth team playing, and the noise in there was great then. there's going to be no issue with
Yeah,
atmosphere.
yeah.
I can assure
and
everybody
Everton fans, the sadly when you beat us at Portman Road this season, once you'd secured that second goal, the atmosphere from the away end was one of the better, a lot better than your red rivals. I've got to say.
Was that Michael Keane? Oh, thank you very much. I'm glad you said that.
A very surprised and very good goal from Michael Keane. Right,
Michael Keane only scores good goals.
And it would have to be on the day he played at Portman Road. So anyway, again, could keep talking about this, but we'll have to stop. Go and check out Nick's YouTube channel. We put some links in the description. There's some fantastic videos and a great video of looking around Goodison Park. And let's talk about that now, because as much of I can sense the enthusiasm and the love of the new place, you followed its build. But there's a sort of maybe a tinge of sadness, because let's face it, football fans, the ground is such an important thing. You've had so many emotions, so many times. You've been going there for decades, no doubt. How are you feeling about your 2 more games remaining, and how are you feeling about the switch?
I feel very, very mixed emotions right now. So when this was first announced, there was nothing but joy from me. I was over the moon. We're getting a new stadium. As an Evertonian, even though that's standing right there, there's a little bit of I'll still believe it when I'm in there. And do you know what I mean? That's just being an Evertonian for you. It could still go wrong until we're in there, you know. But there was nothing but joy. And even throughout my time watching the build and talking to subscribers, other fans, I've always said this is something that needs to happen. Even when people are a bit like, no, I don't want to leave Goodison, I've always said this needs to be done. We need a new stadium to try and keep up and move ourselves forward. We need to do it. But right now, we've got just 2 games left at Goodison. I'm almost really, I'm like 50-50 now. It's turned me a bit. I still desperately want to be in there. At the same time, I desperately don't want to leave Goodison, but you can't do both, you know?
I'm going to ask you a tough question now, because, you know, the way this will become that beloved home is moments, you know, moments, big nights, big games. What's been your most memorable moment at Goodison Park? What's the most memorable game? Or,
do you know, the most memorable one that was actually more recent. I know we've got the memorable games like beating Bayern Munich 3-1 in the semi-final of the European Cup. I wasn't there for that though, and there's other games like that, but my most memorable is actually the Crystal Palace a couple of seasons ago, when we needed to beat them to stay up. They went 2-0 up and we come back and beat them 3-2. There was near the end of that game, I literally couldn't sit down, couldn't sit still. Nobody could, you know. Calvert-Lewin comes in with the diving header and gets us 3-2 up, and it was just the emotion of it.
I can remember that as a neutral watching it. I think that song came out, didn't it? And it was electric, wasn't it, that night? So yeah, that's the memory you've got, and hopefully sometime next season you'll develop some memories like that here.
Yeah, do you know what was great about that night as well? I was with my son as well. So me and my lad were there, and we were both, you know, everybody was so emotional about it, and yeah, it was just great. But yeah, like you say, you just got to hope for more like that.
I remember running onto the pitch with my lad when we got promoted last season, and it is a moment to share with your son, isn't it, when you have that. Right, well, that's it then. We'll leave it here. Nick, thank you so much for coming on.
Not at all.
Let's hope that you celebrate in style the end of your time at Goodison, but not celebrate today, because I think it will be a good game. I think Ipswich will give you a good challenge today, but I think perhaps your home crowd will carry on. What's your prediction for the score?
Today, against Ipswich, I'm really sorry to say, I'm going to go 3-1. I think that we're missing Tarkowski at the back, of course, and it's massive for Everton. He is huge for Everton. Missing him at the back, but hopefully if Moyes sticks with the fact that he puts O'Brien in there and not Michael Keane, please don't play Michael Keane, David Moyes. But if he puts O'Brien in there, I think we'll be all right, but I think you might nick one, because you've got your boy Delap, who is just outstanding, and I hope he's playing for us next season.
Yeah, well, exactly. Delap is the real McCoy. I think you'll be joining a queue, but I think he would be perfect for Everton. He's the kind of old school striker like you've had before. Might have an injury today, we shall see if he plays.
Right,
not 100% sure, but I think we've got a strong front four, so I think we'll give you some problems. But anyway,
what's your prediction?
I will go for 2-1 Ipswich.
Okay.
And I hope Delap scores, and I hope you see him in his pomp, because he's a real McCoy, as I said. But anyway, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much, Nick. It's been fantastic for you to take us around. As I said, go and check out his drone videos of the build of the stadium, and we'll be back shortly after the Ipswich Everton game to get the views from the press box with Phil and Kallum. As always, please give us a like, and if you haven't, please subscribe. See you again soon. Hello and welcome back to TWTV for another video verdict coming to you from Liverpool outside Goodison Park for another video verdict looking back on a Town game. And today we'll be looking at Everton 2, Ipswich 2 in Town's last ever game at Goodison Park and the penultimate game for Everton. And I'm joined as always by two people who know what they're talking about. Kallum Brisset and Phil, it is you two. Kallum Brisset and Phil Ham from TWTD. Welcome along, guys.
Hello.
And it was a momentous. We've obviously had a section earlier, which hopefully you've enjoyed, speaking to Mr. Drone and talking about the emotions of leaving. And I guess, guys, what Nick said, Mr. Drone said earlier, was there was going to be a big fan display and they were going to come out the clappers and they were going to beat us 3-1. But I thought Town did well in the early stages just to tamper it all down and the atmosphere didn't build. And I thought overall, Town looked like they were kind of reaching the Premier League level at times. Kallum, you start us off with what was your view of the game and what do you think some of the key moments were, please?
Well, you mentioned the start of the game. I thought the start of the game was poor all round in terms of the energy around the place. There felt like there was no... It felt like a post-season friendly. Felt like there wasn't a lot riding on the game on the pitch. Even the build-up to the game, for some of it, I think I forgot that Ipswich Town were involved in a game. It felt like I was just here for a farewell.
It was an occasion, wasn't it? Yeah.
And that's I think what the biggest takeaway from the day is. But if we're on an Ipswich Town show, talk about Ipswich Town. I thought we took the sting out of the atmosphere. I thought credit for doing that. Then they found a way through with a couple of goals, and at 2-0, you're kind of thinking that it's probably going to get away from us, but Julio and Ciso with a stunning goal not long before half-time kind of brought us back into it. I think that's the biggest talking point from a Town perspective. Everton then didn't batter the door down in the second half to go and make it 3-1, which set it up nicely for George Hurst to come off the bench and get an equaliser. First time this season that we've got anything from a game that we've been 2 goals down in. Too little, too late in terms of what it means for the league table, obviously. But there's certainly the start of some positives that we can hopefully build between now and the end of the season.
Yeah, I think that's right. It was a bit of a slow start, but as we grew through the game, some performances, we'll talk about the player performances in a moment, started to grow. And I thought at the end of the game, we were looking at a strong side, I thought. I was quite pleased with it. Over to you, Phil, to get your kind of what you've put in the match report. I mean, again, Phil, Kallum said it, it was a massive day. We met fairly early, didn't we, Phil? And there were thousands of people outside the game. Milling around. This is the oldest ground in the Premier League. It's had the most top-tier fixtures. It's an Archibald Leach design. I can tell you in the away game, there's a lot of wooden seats in there, wooden things. And it is the end of an era, because I don't think there are many more grounds like this. It's going to be changed.
No. And it is weird, a club, seeing these names have been so familiar to us for 50 years in sort of my case, and much longer in many other people. These Goodison Park has been a kind of fixture, hasn't it, in the football world, and suddenly it won't be here anymore. So yeah, I think it's quite a momentous thing for any set of fans to move to another ground, and and I think they've kind of made the most of kind of sort of celebrating the old place, I think, in the way that they've...
obviously it is the penultimate one, but this was the fans' game today.
Yeah,
they'll have one more, and somehow they've got Southampton in their last game, which is maybe a bit of a guaranteed win.
Do you think, almost as if it's was fixed, wasn't it? That
Ipswich and Southampton, but come back to your match report.
We spoiled the party a little bit.
We spoiled the party.
I agree with Kallum, really. I thought the game... You had all the kind of stuff off the field, the tifos and the ticker tape and the loud music and all that kind of stuff, and it was all quite emotional, wasn't it? And I think, my cousin, her husband was a big Everton fan, and he was so passionate, and so you're sort of thinking about these people that that have been Everton fans, and thinking, oh, what a day for them, and and I think it started off. It was very kind of after it lacked intensity, the game itself, I think, and until they scored their first goal, and then there was the kind of two incidents within a minute where Liam Delap clattered into a couple of their players, the first of which he got booked for, and I think that kind of raised the kind of the atmosphere, I think, amongst their fans. It's sort of and our fans as well, I think. So and then when they got the second goal, I thought they were quite dominant, and their fans were well up, and you thought it's going to be 3 or 4-0, or it'll get to half time, it'll be 2-0, and the second half will just be a played out in a very dull manner. But Julio Enciso pops up, belts one in from 30 yards, clipped off the underside of the crossbar, which is always very pleasing to see, isn't it? And and that changed the game, really. I was winding the Everton fans up in front of me. That was the greatest goal that Goodison Park had ever seen, which they weren't convinced by. Yes, that changed the game. And really, I thought from there, we did pretty well. We defended well. You don't remember a huge number. I don't really remember too many clear-cut chances at 2-1, do you? And I think actually we had more.
Yeah.
I think Enciso scored a brilliant goal, but he had one chance just before he scored, didn't he? And then he had another one in the second half, which he might have done better with. So I think a draw probably a fair result.
Yeah, I think the draw is definitely a fair result for me. I think what happened is I thought it was going to get away from us. I thought we were in the game. It was quite even. And then they had two moments of an excellent cross and header that we didn't close enough on that. We didn't mark well enough on the header. Then that swerve goal, what happened? Was that a mistake from Palmer, or was it just a kind of a magic piece of magic?
Bit of both, probably.
Bit of both.
Yeah.
When you watch it live, you're thinking, did it swerve? Did it take a deflection? Watching the replay, I don't think it did.
Kieran
take a
McKenna
deflection.
said he didn't think it did either.
I think it was just a swerving shot from McNeil that just catches Alex Palmer completely off guard.
He was so rooted, and goalkeepers are like standing there, and it's kind of. But I thought those two moments where they got through, I thought you were saying there, Phil. I thought it was going to get away from us, and then I think there was those incidents, as you said, with the lap, and then we clicked up a couple of gears, and we started to cause them problems. And I think, as you said, and Enciso got into the game, didn't he, Kallum?
He was the most lively player on the pitch, even before his goal.
Two opportunities, didn't he?
Yeah, you had the big one where he kind of danced his way into the penalty area beyond Nathan Patterson, and then he had a choice whether to go for the far corner or pull it back for the near post. Went for the near post option and missed the target by a few inches.
There were moments when Enciso where we could have got a shot on target, would have been quite helpful. Let's just go through the stats. So 43% possession for us. I thought it felt like 50-50, but I think that's not bad for away from home.
I thought it'd be more the other way around. I'm surprised.
More the other way around.
I'm surprised it's as
as in Ipswich would have the higher percentage.
Everton.
It begins with E.
Everton. Shows we've been playing our football recently.
That's where we're headed.
They'd probably had a greater percentage than that because we did defend in depth at times, didn't we?
Yeah. XG for once this season we've got a higher XG. We got 0.81 to their 0.57. We had 12 shots.
That shows it maybe wasn't a 2-2 game.
Yeah. No. Exactly. 12 shots for us, 5 on target, 1 big chance, only 3 corners. Probably noticeable. Didn't get as many corners.
Which is probably just as well, to be fair. They're some of their players are huge.
And they're good at set pieces.
Many first contacts anyway.
Indeed. Kallum, we've had a bit of an injury and a suspension crisis as well. Could you take us through the lineup, and then I think we'll get into some of the player performances. I like some of them.
Yeah, I'm pretty much, if you were fit, you were involved. Pretty much. What were the changes? Amari came back in on the right. He slow start. Maybe didn't notice him early on, but kind of grew into the game. It was his breakout and crossfield pass that led to the Enciso moment before he scored that we touched on a moment ago. It was his cross that led to the Hurst goal in the second half. And Connor Chaplin was back. I don't think he was at his lively best. But, great to see him back. It was his first start since before Christmas, the Newcastle game back in December. So it's been a long time since we've seen considerable minutes from him. They were the only 2 changes. Calvin Phillips was back involved off the bench. He got some minutes, which was obviously good to see.
And a youngster on the bench as well.
Yeah, Somto was on the bench again. And Axel was back on the bench as well.
Yeah. And I think
used to fit enough to have an impact from the bench as well.
And I thought he looked good when he came on.
Slowly getting some numbers back, but we're still quite depleted.
I thought Kajus was good when he came on that short period. He did an excellent sliding tackle, which we love to see him do. And I thought Clark was...
Jack Clark was
slow start, but he actually really got into the game well.
Yeah, I thought George Hurst obviously came up with the goal scoring moment. But out of the substitutes, I thought Jack Clark was the most impressive in terms of when he came on and kind of wanting to prove a point, wanting to make an impact. I think he did have a point to prove, having been sacrificed in the first half of each of the last 2 games and then dropped from the starting lineup today.
I think everyone in the away end, the raucous away end, they all feel, everyone feels he's going to have a good season next term.
I've really felt for him in the last couple of weeks.
Phillips as well. Phillips, I thought, he was sort of trying to dictate the play, which I thought was
when he came in, there was a lot of he was quite animated, wasn't he? He was telling people what to do. I do think you're right, Kallum, that Chaplin didn't look quite at the level, a bit loose at times, I thought. Who was your man of the match, Kallum?
I went for Julio in the end, just because I thought he was throughout the game. I thought if anything was likely to happen in an attacking sense, it was going to come through Julio one way or the other. And
he had the wonder goal as well. So,
he had the wonder goal, and it, like I say, it wasn't just those two moments that I mentioned. He blazed one over in the second half, which he probably should have done better with. That would be the only blight in his performance, is that he needed to be more clinical in moments.
He looked like he tired a little bit towards the end. He was carrying that knock for a bit.
It was one of them games where you could kind of tell his technical quality was perhaps a level above something we've seen or anyone else on the pitch, perhaps. So I thought he's blown hot and cold, I think, in his loan spell since he's been here. But I think today was definitely one of his better games.
I think you're very right about hot and cold performances.
Yeah,
over to you for man of the match.
I agree with NC. So the goal changed the game, didn't it? Really, it was. From a Town perspective, if he hadn't scored that goal, it had gone on to half-time at 2-0 and they kept the pressure on, it would have been a comfortable Everton win, I think. And you can't the greatest goal ever scored at Goodison Park, so obviously you can't not give him man of the match today. But I totally agree with you that he should be more clinical, and I think there are times when he perhaps needs to look up and see who else is around. The same can go for Liam Delap today, with a particularly early on when he had that break down the middle when Enciso was in space. But I think as Kieran said,
in fact, sorry to cut across you there, Phil. I think it was Chaplin and another, I forget the name, actually went over to him after one of his missed opportunities of passing in danger and said, "You've got to release it." And I think on the next move he did. So at least he's learning a little bit.
And Kieran said this. Kieran said it was disappointing not to have him earlier and have him more often, because obviously he came in and he got injured almost immediately, so it took him a while really to kind of to start to make an impact for us.
Yeah, absolutely. What do we think about the four centre-backs? As Kallum said, we had no choice, but I quite like the four centre-backs across the back, apart from maybe the first Everton goal with that cross. Maybe a full-back would have cut it out, maybe. But what do you think about the four centre-backs?
I think the cross came from, the full-back had blocked the cross, the original cross, and it went back. So it was probably Hutchinson who was tracking back that side, who probably should have been with him. But I think it does help when you're pinned back in your penalty area to have four big men who are used to nodding the ball away. And certainly Jacob Greaves at that back post probably did a better job than Leif Davis would have done in similar circumstances.
And I do just want to mention Jacob Greaves. We were having this chat just before we came on air. I think recently, even in his preferred position at centre-back, there's been question marks over his performances since he's come back from injury. He was obviously thrown in at left-back last week at Newcastle. Didn't look overly comfortable in that role. And today he had to slot in at left-back again, but I thought he played really well, to be honest. I thought he was provided an aerial presence that you don't often get from a left-back.
I'm thinking of two key headers he made.
Yeah.
I actually saw him waiting for his taxi with Jack Clark out the back, and Greaves absolutely shouted. I had a quick chat with him, and he'd put a shift in today. As I think they all had. It was a spirited performance. As you can see, people are taking in those last moments of Goodison Park. Lots of photos today. Okay, let's start to close it out by going to the forum, and we'll have 2-3 keywords from Homer 123. Let's start with you, Phil. Spirit not lacking from Suffolk Punch FC.
I think that's a key thing, actually, is that we've been through a season where we've hardly won a game. We've had sort of knock after knock after knock where we've kind of failed to win matches where we've come close to winning them and had kind of points snatched away from us. And yet that spirit that we've shown over the last two seasons, which has been such a key thing, when we've gone behind in matches, there's been no panic, has there? And we've got ourselves back into... I mean, it's very rare, I think, as an Ipswich Town supporter over the years, to go a goal behind and not actually be that worried. And over the last two seasons, we've felt like that. This year has obviously been a different case, but we've ended up here in a game where we've got relegated last week, or confirmation of relegation last week. We've got a squad that's depleted through injury and suspension, and we've gone 2-0 down in what was a party atmosphere for the home side, and we've dragged it back to 2-2 from being 2-0 down. Well, I think that bodes well for the future, that the spirit is still there.
The spirit's there, and they could have easily, they're almost on the beach, aren't they, in that cliche, but they really dug in, didn't they? They were putting themselves on the line, and
other teams, like Cardiff got relegated last week, didn't they? I think they're confident, and they got hammered by some very poor team today, and so teams in our position can do that, and they didn't.
And I think since they want to give the fans something, and again, I keep saying it, an incredible away end again. Now, how did that come across in the press box?
It's good. It's a good ground for that. I think there's a lot of noise all around, and
it's all the wood you see. It's bouncing.
It's good acoustics.
Good acoustics.
Archibald Leach.
Exactly.
Again,
You knew what he was doing back in the day, Archibald Leach. Okay, so over to you, Kallum, for the last three keywords, which is please stay Amari. This is a theme on the message board on the TWT forum tonight from Joey Jojo Jr. That's a name. What's your thoughts on that?
I assume this is in light of the news this week that he's got a reported relegation release clause, which
and Leeds in the picture. Is that what we're hearing?
In the picture, yeah. I think for what it's worth, I think most of the players in the squad will have some sort of clause in their contract. I don't think that's anything.
Those that signed last summer.
Surprise. Yes, those that signed last summer. I don't think that's kind of surprising in kind of football economics. 35 million, I think, is the reported fee. I'd be surprised if anyone does pay 35 million for Amari Hutchinson. But yeah, of course we want him to stay. We've seen what he can do in the Championship, particularly in the second half of last season, and he's shown in patches what he can do this season. And I think for his own development, I do genuinely believe that another year in the Championship would be the best thing for him.
He grew into the game, and as you've rightly pointed out, I think he can continue to grow with us and get better.
And he's still 21. Maybe 22, but he's still so young.
And he is the transfer strategy, isn't it? To get him up to 50 million or whatever it may, and go up with him again, get promoed and get him up to a very high figure.
And get a second Championship promotion on his CV. I'm sure it's something that he'd be keen to do.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. The 35 million is, whether that's the figure, it was sort of not an entirely reliable source, wasn't it? And the story about him. Leeds being interested in him seemed entirely to come from Lee Hendry saying that Leeds should go for him. So
that's how those stories start.
Yeah, whether there's actually anything in that or not, I don't know. I agree with Kallum. I don't think Premier League clubs would want to pay 35 million for him at the moment. Whether someone sees something in him to offer Town something. They might do, but I don't think.
Yeah, I
don't think Town would probably be interested in getting rid of him at the moment. We don't need to sell, do we?
There's no.
Yeah. And scouts would have seen what we've talked about a few times is an excellent player, but sometimes not got the final product, if you know what I mean. And I think that will come in time, as we've said.
You see that so often with players of his age. You don't. You're not the finished product at 21, are you? If he was the finished product.
I think he's quite.
He wouldn't be at Ipswich Town if he was the finished product at 21. I think that's the simple truth.
Absolutely, and I think he's got quite a connection with McKenna as well. Okay, I'm conscious. Let's start to close it out. Let's look around the Survivor League. It's no longer a Survivor League. Well, it's the
failed to survive league.
The failed to survive league. Let's fight for 18th. We've actually done okay because that point today, Leicester in our two rivals, not even that anymore. Leicester beat Southampton 2-0 at home. Yeah. But our point means that we are not just goal difference above them in 18th, we are a point above them now. So hopefully we'll continue to win that battle, and we're hopefully beating them at the King Power in a few weeks' time. League position, obviously, we're 18th, 22 points. 4 wins. Wow.
Still 4 wins.
4 wins, but 10 draws and 21 losses. God, that hurts. 22 points and a minus 41 goal difference. So that's it. We hang on to 18th place. Let's hope we stick there for the rest of the season. Let's quickly talk about who we know now we won't be playing next season in the Championship, because it was the last time of the Championship. Take me through it, guys. What happened at the bottom of the table?
Well, Luton have gone, I think, is the big story, isn't it? Luton, who were relegated from this division last year,
which is incredible, yeah.
Yes, it just seems that they never adjusted to life in the Championship, and
Matt Bloomfield there,
not able to turn it around, and they'll be playing League One football, which I think, a lot of Ipswich people have sort of said, I don't really like Luton because it's a bit of a kind of dump of a ground, but it's quite a short trip, isn't it?
Actually, unfortunately for them, they're about to start construction on a massive new ground, and they'll be the construction will be going on as they play in League One. I think Plymouth, despite a spirited effort, they've gone down as well. And who was the third team? Cardiff, as you mentioned earlier on.
Last week,
and then who was confirmed in the playoffs? So
Coventry and Bristol City. Bristol City, what's the best way of describing it? Kind of
fell over the
stumbling over the playoff dotted line.
With our Liam Manning getting them over the line. And so we now know we will be going to Borough next season, and Blackburn. All those glamorous places. Yeah, Millwall. We get to go back to that lovely place. So
there's a long list of clubs we've come to know and love.
Yes,
in our championship years.
Well, we're heading there. Well, let's leave it there. It was a great occasion to be here today, guys. I really felt like it was a special moment to be here, and really is for me. I think it's sad that these old grounds are closing.
I'd never been here before, so I was very pleased that I've had the opportunity to come here before Goodison does go. Well, not go as in it's not going anywhere, but before Everton kind of move out to their new home. Like you say, it was just a nice occasion to be here, almost forgetting that Ipswich Town were involved in the football match.
Exactly. But, for me, a spirited display, so well done, boys. It was a party. We've got some good footage and chat with Nick earlier from the new ground, and that looks quite something. So hopefully we'll be there in a couple of seasons' time. And I'll just finish by saying there's quite a party going on the other side. It's Goodison Road, isn't it? Which involved Liam Delap and Ben Godfrey going into a house where there's a party and signing the wall. So anyway, a bit of background there. All right, okay. Thanks so much for joining us again. And if you've liked the show, give it a like. And if you haven't subscribed, please give us a subscribe. And we look forward to seeing you after the next game.